going to wrap things up. We're going to talk about
credit.
Credit with a capital C, right?
With a capital C.
Yeah, credit is credit the straw that stirs the drink, or is it the drink?
It might be the drink. I don't even know. It would definitely be definitely the straw. I mean, it's obviously a big piece. It's not everything, Todd.
No, it's not everything. But let's face it, when somebody walks into your office and they sit down and you can pull up those scores and those scores look nice, then you can go, okay, now we can.
It can certainly impact the direction.
Right.
It certainly can impact the direction.
That's right.
And there's so many impacts to credit, Todd. And it's not just, some people are like, my credit's bad forever. That's not reality. Credit's a snapshot in time. And it's really made up of your, credit mix. So the type of accounts that you have. It's made up of your payment history. Obviously, that's very important. And it's made up of your limits compared to your balances. Obviously, the lower the balance, maybe the better the score.
Yeah.
But the one thing, and you can always change the balance, Todd, the one thing that you can't erase is missed payments. And I've seen people miss like $10 payments.
Yeah.
You beg, borrow, and steal to make those payments because you can't change those bad payments.
Right.
But they're not on there forever, ever. So that's one thing that we should mention. Any derogatory things that are on the credit bureau, depending on the province, in Nova Scotia, they're on there for 6 years. Mm-hmm. Okay? So if you had a collection, if you had a bankruptcy or a first bankruptcy, if you have a written off account, any derogatory payments, they're going to be off after 6 years. Okay. So I think that's really important to remember. You're not in purgatory for having, some blemishes on your credit forever and ever.
Yeah.
And sometimes people think having a blemish on their credit means they're done. That's not the case. Mm-hmm. I think if you can justify it, if it's isolated, if your payment history has been good since that point, I think there's always a solution. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's about going with the best foot forward and having all the information. I think the more information that we know, in the mortgage industry, the easier it is to kind of justify that. And also it helps us, know which direction we need to go with the file, really. Now, let's say that you had a major, life event and you had some issues. There are certainly lenders that are tailored more towards client that have, some rougher credit, because the credit really tells the lender what the character of the client is and really what their willingness is to pay. Bad credit doesn't necessarily mean bad person. Mm-hmm. So that's really what I want to kind of break down that misconception. 90% of the clients that we see every day have like AAA perfect credit.
Yeah.
But 10% have had some challenges.
Right.
And that could be because they had matrimonial breakdown. They could have had health issues. They could have had loss of business. And sometimes, Todd, I'll be honest with you, sometimes it's just mismanagement of money.
Right.
That's reality.
Yeah.
But I think make your mistakes, but don't make the same mistake twice. Some people keep on making the same mistakes, and sometimes they're always like in this perpetual challenge.
Yeah.
And I think going into a tougher economic times, some customers are going to suffer some credit challenges. If they are losing their job, or if they're losing their business, or obviously if the cost of goods are going up, it's going to impact some people.
Right.
It really, really is. And I think knowing what's going on with your credit is really important. And there's a couple free apps that you can monitor your credit.
Right.
So there's 2 credit reporting agencies in Canada. There's TransUnion and there's Equifax. We primarily use Equifax. Some lenders will use both. Some lenders will only use TransUnion. Just kind of depends. So I'd recommend downloading both apps. You can go directly to TransUnion or Equifax to get credit monitoring, and that's typically a paid service, Todd. So not everybody wants to pay, of course. Mm-hmm. If you don't mind being maybe displayed a few ads, sent a few emails, there are 2 free apps, and they're both available on the Apple App Store or on Google Play. And one's called Credit Karma, and Credit Karma brings in the data from TransUnion, and the other one is Borrow Well, and that brings in the data from Equifax. So it shows all your accounts, it shows any of your credit inquiries, it shows all your payment history, and it gives you a score. Now, the score that are on these apps doesn't necessarily mean that's a score that we're going to see or your lender's going to see, because we use different versions of the credit bureau. But the data, all in all, Todd, should be very similar.
Right.
Should be the same data.
Yeah.
And there's lots of times that we see issues on clients' credit bureaus that are mistakes.
Right.
And with Equifax, we actually have an investigation process where we're able to work with Equifax and the consumer to investigate any issues. And sometimes we've had stuff resolved. So I think that if there's an issue on your credit bureau, there can be a path to getting that fixed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think obviously if ignoring these things though is the biggest mistake people make, right?
Sometimes
like, to
people
your point,
put
right?
their head in the sand. And
that's right. And they hope that it just goes away.
It'll eventually go away after 6 years, but
After
6 years is a long time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And having open communication and dialogue with people who you are wanting to borrow money with is also a massive thing. And we've talked a lot about this.
I think being like open and honest, and like if there have been challenges, like give us the information.
Yeah.
We can, like, I want to advocate on people's behalf, but if I don't know, it's really hard for me to put that best foot forward.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes like clients think they have kind of not so great credit and they come in perfect.
Is that right?
People just don't know.
Yeah.
You think people kind of would know, and then people would be like, no, I think it's all good. It's all fine. And it's a train wreck. So I think awareness, what's going on with credit, keeping an eye on it, really important, especially if you want to do a mortgage transaction. As you know, that's one of our real cornerstones on what's going on with mortgage lending. So download Credit Karma, download Borrowwell. They're free. If you don't want the ads, then go directly to TransUnion or Equifax. They do have free versions, Todd, but you can pay for credit.
You don't use the term train wreck though when you're talking to the clients, do you?
No, like sometimes I'm like, wow, this is actual a train wreck. How are we gonna get this? How are we gonna get what's the best foot forward?
Yeah.
And I've done 4,700 transactions. I think now more than 4,700. I think we might be like coming up on 4,800. I'm not sure.
Yes.
For about $1.2 billion worth of mortgages. Let me tell you, I've seen everything.
Yeah.
My team's seen everything.
Yeah.
Every day I see something new. And sometimes it's new stuff with credit, and sometimes it's just something new in general. One little tidbit before we kind of wrap up what we're talking about with credit.
Yep.
It's, there's no magic mix to credit, but I think having a balance between installment credit and credit cards, really important.
Yeah.
Use your credit card, pay it, use it and pay it. Never go above 35, 30, 50% of the limit.
Yep.
Make sure you make all your payments. And credit from major credit grantors is better, i.e. bank lenders. When you get credit from, alternative sources like City Financial and Fairstone and stuff like that, doesn't look as favorable on a credit bureau. Typically, we want to see a consumer to have 2 years of good credit, at least 2 pieces of credit with at least a $2,000 limit. Use it and pay it, use it and pay it.
But sometimes the City Financial is a start.
It's a good start. And I think proving that you can make those payments. Right. And I think if you have very thin credit, but you are renting, make sure you're making your rent payments on time. There's certainly non-reporting credit, facilities that we can really, build a good picture with. If you have very thin credit, but your credit's, or you don't have any credit at all, build the story. Why don't you? Were you a non-resident? Did you just not have any credit? And maybe if you have a cell phone, or maybe if you have a lease for an apartment or something, and you're making those payments on time, that can certainly help. And we certainly have made a business case with kind of alternative credit sources as well.